Hello, and welcome to Filmmaking Sucks podcast. Now, this is where I usually say that we tell you about all the mistakes you can make when making a film. But this week is a special week. Actually, it's a special month. It's Women in Horror Month. Now, you may be asking, Lindsay, what is Women in Horror Month? Well, let me tell you. Women in Horror Month is an international grassroots initiative which encourages supporters to learn about and showcase the underrepresented work of women in the horror industries, whether they are on the screen, behind the scenes, or contributing in their other various artistic ways. It is clear that women love, appreciate, and contribute to the horror genre. Women in Horror Month is a celebration of these contributions to horror, with articles, events, and social media posts featuring women in the horror industry. The ultimate goal is getting works by and featuring women to reach a wider audience. This is the 9th Women in Horror Month, so you can follow the movement by searching hashtag WIHM9. So what's this got to do with this week's episode? Well, this week, as part of the Women in Horror initiative, the Filmmaking Sucks podcast is presenting the Women in Horror panel from the recent Macabre Faire Film Festival. The panel consists of Macabre Pictures conspirator Miss Angie Hansen, a director and actress in her own right, a special effects artist and director Shiva Rodriguez, actress, producer, and special effects artist Lowry Fawley, and Jill Poisson, who you know from the cinematography panel we posted last week. And of course, lastly, yours truly. It's also moderated expertly by Manny. I'm going to avoid getting on my soapbox and spare you any of my ranting. Instead, I'm just going to let these amazing women tell you what it's like to be a woman in the horror industry in their own words.
Hello, everybody. My name is Manny. I am the co-owner of Macabre Faire Pictures and the co-host of the Filmmaking Sucks podcast, which we are recording this for as well. Welcome to the Women in Horror panel. Give the ladies a round of applause. So, this festival, obviously run by Elsie, really likes to push women in horror. Women have always had a really big part of horror films, even though it's kind of downplayed. But we have the final girl trope, which has been in horror films as long as you can remember. We have the strong-willed mother, who protects. The less seen but just as impactful female murderess, which we all want to see more of.
Yes. Yep.
And possibly my favorite, the coming-of-age story. And we'll get to that, definitely. That addresses puberty, adolescence, sexual relationships, things of the sort. So, it's only until recently that these contributions of women to women in horror and film in general are being celebrated and generally given the attention that they deserve. The ladies on our panel today all have had a part in bringing at least one of those, if not more of those tropes, to life. So, please, ladies, one at a time, introduce yourselves.
I'm Angie Hansen.
What do you do?
Oh, that's me. I'm an actor, director, producer. I'm helping Elsie with this whole festival.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Serrano. I am the other co-owner and co-host of Filmmaking Sucks podcast, and I'm also Macabre Pictures. I'm a writer, director, producer, and first AD.
I'm Jill Poisson. I'm a cinematographer, director, writer, producer, probably like 5 other jobs.
Gaffer grip, best boy.
Yeah.
Throw it on there.
For horror films, I'm mostly a cinematographer.
I'm Lowry Fawley. I am an actor, producer, and effects artist with, I'm going to say it correctly because I keep getting teased about mispronouncing the name of my company that I have with Shiva, Ronkonkoma Films.
points, you got it right.
Extra points for getting it right.
Gold star.
Shiva Rodriguez. I started out as a special effects artist, screenwriter, and I pretend to be a director once in a while.
Okay. So first things first, we want to leave this really open. So I'm going to make it very much like a forum. So if anybody has any questions while the ladies are speaking, raise your hand and we'll get to you. Okay? So, first thing. Yeah, I lost my place already. We begin with the first. First and foremost, any of you can answer, and you've all been asked this 100 times. Why horror films? She hates this. We've heard this in our panels before. They always ask the women, why horror? Why would women want to do horror films? Because men do horror, you know? But I'm not asking in the same way why, but why is horror specific to your voice? What is it that horror lends to what you have to say in your films?
Because they're interesting, they're deep, there's more depth to it, it's not superficial. There's meat, there's excitement, and I don't think it has anything to do with being a man or a woman. It's just they're interesting, fascinating films, and they're fascinating stories to tell.
Yeah, as someone who lights things, you get to play with colors and play with shadows and a lot more than you do. I can be like, oh, we're going to have a red wall over there and an orange wall over there, and we're going to have this huge thing of shadow, and in a regular drama or something like that, it's not going to be an option. So it's kind of cool that I get to experiment with looks that maybe I'm going to bring on something else in horror because it's completely
you can get kind
atypical.
of outlandish with it. It doesn't have to be so
Oh yeah, absolutely.
straightforward. You can really express it. 'Cause you're mostly cinematographer.
Yeah.
So you're very big on the look and doing that.
Yeah.
That fun color stuff. I love doing that stuff.
Yeah.
I love it.
I like getting my hands dirty, personally.
There you
Just
go.
with the special effects, you get to do all kinds of crazy stuff that you don't get when you do dramas or comedies or, romantic tragedies. I like creating the creatures. I like doing hey, what's an interesting way I can kill off somebody today? I have a body count every year. It's fun. I've had more fun on horror sets than I have on any other type of genre set.
Absolutely.
Yeah. To me, I think it's a combination of theater and film, and I have a background in theater, so it's it's not over the top, but it's on the line. And fear is such a awesome primal emotion that that you get to experience when you're doing this, and same with blood. As an actor, throw the blood, cover me in blood. I'm all about it. I want to take a red bath after I'm done.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Absolutely.
And if it's don't be afraid of it. If there's it's not enough blood ever.
Yeah, like everybody said, I think my usual answer is that it encompasses everything. In a horror film, you get drama, you get comedy, you get everything on the spectrum in a horror movie. And you also have that freedom of pushing it to one level to another. You can take it to that extreme. And you can take it a little over the top. And you can make it a little supernatural. And it kind of allows you a bigger world to work in. Because you can add supernatural elements. You can bring people back from the dead. There's literally any possibility is possible in horror.
So the expanse, the ability to do anything in general.
I think also as women, I think it's really great for us. I agree with you. It's not really a man or a woman thing. But as a woman, I think that we are more in touch with emotions and the spectrum of emotions. So you can take a lot of complex emotions that I don't think men really deal as much in. Where it's it doesn't have to be straight terror and it doesn't have to be straight
That's
anger
true.
or straight gore. There's shades of gray, and I think that women, we understand the shades a bit more.
And in something that Manny mentioned about the whole idea of coming of age and the love story, you can tell a love story in a horror movie.
Yeah.
And it can be a very powerful element, but it's not just a love story and it's not just a horror, it's a blend.
Yeah.
there's so much blending and shaping you can do in a horror film.
I mean, especially when you're playing with love stories. I mean, love stories, I mean, people do crazy things for love.
Yes, they do.
And it's not just man-woman love. I mean, mother and child love we saw in the Babadook. You know, there's so, and I think women, we're because we are just more nurturing. We've raised to be more nurturing, or that's our role in this society, to be nurturing. I think that we understand and express love in a way that, you know, men don't always. And I think that we, as the caretakers and the mothers and the bringers and givers of life, have an element of love that men just don't quite understand. If we feel it to a higher degree almost. I mean, especially when you're playing with coming of age, where your hormones are completely out of whack and you're feeling things all over the extreme.
And you
know?
are willing to do anything for what you want. And
Yes.
there's that too. It's the idea of we can create characters who are willing to go to these extremes and give them a venue to go to those extremes in. We can take more risks with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can also tell stories that you wouldn't be able to tell in a drama. Like, the great thing about genres where it's horror and sci-fi and fantasy, you can take something that's going on right now. Like, Get Out is a perfect example. You can just tell this visceral story about something incredibly relevant, and because it's wrapped in this genre, people are going to go, okay, I'm going to watch that, I'm going to sit through that kind of story. They're not necessarily going to sit through as a straight drama because they're going to find it too offensive. It allows this wall that makes the audience comfortable and then also allows them to potentially think.
And I think it builds a strong relationship. Like, you know, with Get Out, I mean, because you go on this journey with him and he's facing such extreme adversity and extreme, like, consequences of the world, then you get a deeper journey with a character, I think.
I like that answer.
It's really long-winded.
Yeah.
Anybody want to add to that? Okay. So this is the upsetting part. This is a fact that everybody needs to know. Of the top 1,100 grossing films from 2007 to 2017, 4.3% of them were directed by women. Meaning for every female director hired, there were 22 male directors. Okay? Out of these films, there were 665 unique directors amongst 1,100 films. Meaning many of them directed more than one. Of the 665, 622 were men, 43 women. Okay? Even at this festival, and I don't mean to shit on the festival at all, but even at this, which has how many films playing? 84, 85 films. Only 15 of them are directed by women. You've all produced or directed films in the past. Moving forward in the new industry, with everything that's been going on lately, is having more women on your set and in your films a conscious decision on your part. Has it been? Obviously it will be.
I would say it's never been a conscious decision, but I also like working with, I like working with women. So I work with a lot of women. Like, I would say now, maybe I would think about, like, whenever I've directed, if I'm not shooting the movie myself, every cinematographer I've had has been a guy. That'll probably change.
Yeah.
I will probably at least once just look at women to be my cinematographer or my editor or something like that. I got lucky with working with people that were like as many women on set as possible. That's awesome. Not all filmmakers are like that. I've literally been rejected because of women. I credit myself as Jill Poisson instead of Jill Poisson.
J.K. Rowling does the same thing.
Yeah, the line literally was, I submitted for a short film, and within 5 minutes of me sending out the email, I got an email back, and he was like, "Sweetheart, you're not what we're looking for."
Well, he said sweetheart?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I called him Sugar Tits.
There you go.
He didn't like the response back. I was like, if you looked at my reel of work, you wouldn't know I was a woman.
Yeah.
I work on horror movies. I work on movies that have nudity. I work on this, and you're not going to be able to tell my sex by the work that I do. And so that was the point where I was like, all right, well, I have to at least get through the door, and the only way I can do that is mask who I am.
Just the J. Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of writers do that, and it's unfortunate that you have to.
Yeah.
But yeah, J.K. Rowling, she believes that the only reason she was published in the first place is because it was J.K. rather than
Yeah.
her name.
Like Tina Fontana for Star Trek.
Yeah.
That's been a long thing in science fiction books as well.
It's
Half the authors are female and you can't tell.
It's sad that we still have to do that. I mean,
Yeah.
they were doing that in the early 1900s. I mean, and Mary Shelley, I think she published under a different name, was that?
I'm not sure.
I
Potentially.
think so.
name is also a British first name, so I've
Yeah.
had a lot of people being like, "Oh, I didn't realize you were a girl." You know what? I'm sorry.
I don't
mind. Like,
Ugh.
I was
Wow.
like, or oh, I don't need anything that sparkles. Once they realized I was a girl, I'm like, people eat their faces off. There's nothing.
There's nothing
that
gonna
sparkles.
Yeah.
But because I have tits and I'm a female, you're suddenly, oh, I thought it was a British male first name, and then suddenly, which is really sick in this industry.
Yeah.
Question?
Yeah, well, you mentioned that so few women at this festival have submitted films.
No, it's not submitted, accepted.
Accepted.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I kind of would be interested to see how many were actually submitted,
Yeah.
because I'm sure the numbers, there would be a great disparity between the
Yeah.
male
Yeah.
and the female.
There is.
The-
Submissions, and that brings me to my question.
Go for it.
Which is, I'm really glad to see that you are creators, and I love scream queens, but when it comes to women in horror, I really like to see this end of it. But how much harder is it for you ladies, and how do you get the funding? Because I'm sure people you've had meetings where you've been patted on the head.
Or asked out instead.
Yeah.
Getting the money is always the hard part. So all the like small projects I've done, either self-funded or I've done small Indiegogos. I do have a horror script that I've been trying to get. I wrote in 2008 for a horror film contest, ended up being kind of just a publicity stunt for a director in Rhode Island. And so that was, I'd gotten to the top, the 10 finalists, and they were to make 10 movies, and they made one, and it wasn't even somebody who submitted. And they're actually, like, in the meetings, because they first had us do a pitch, then they had us write a synopsis, then they had us write the full screenplay and submit it. And when they did the pitch, got into the next round, when they had to do the synopsis, at that point, I had a separate writing name than I did my regular name. If I had known I was going to make a J instead of a Jill Poisson, I would have just kept them together. So I was writing under TJ Poisson, which was a high school nickname. And they thought they had gotten their token woman in the group. So when we all first met to get the instructions for the synopsis, outline, they were like, oh, like TJ Poisson. I raised my hand. They were like, oh, Maze, that was yours? And I'm like, yes. So I think they just thought I was with somebody.
The girl.
Yeah. So yeah, because they had one other woman there that she wrote a screenplay about some kind of horror event with karaoke and stuff like that, which actually sounded really interesting. But that ended up flopping, and then a couple years later, I tried again. There was a potential thing for investors, and that ended up being not really a thing, and that's kind of taken a back burner because I have a couple of scripts where I want to get them done. That's one of them, and it's already hard enough to get money, but I think it's harder when you're a woman because it's already harder to be in this industry as a woman as it is.
Getting people to take you seriously and not to just look at you and say, oh, that's nice that you have this little project.
Oh, yeah.
And you start, or they talk to you, they find out that you're a filmmaker, they find out that you're in the film industry. People will start to engage with you, talk to you. Well, what kind of films do you make? And the minute you say horror, the number of people that have immediately steered the conversation over into something else when you tell them, oh, I make horror films, it's, oh, that's a nice little hobby, and what do you do for real kind of thing. So yeah, I've encountered that a great deal. Just the whole, oh, that's nice.
I think I have a little bit of a different perspective. I'm a producer normally. This is actually the first thing I've written and directed since film school. And as a producer, I'm usually the one going out and finding money and having and collecting. So a lot of the times people are used to seeing my face as the one that kind of does all the fundraising and everything. But the thing I found now is that, clearly my husband and I are a team and we create everything together, and we've created everything together since the very beginning. And now with this, me stepping into directing and writing, it's sort of like, oh, you're doing this now? How much is he really doing versus, what is he doing for your film? And I've experienced before, I actually did a web series with another friend of ours, and a male, the co-director. And, it was a web series, it was 8 episodes. I did 4, he did 4. The 3 of us wrote it together. And I've actually been to film festivals where they've left my name off of all of the press.
Really?
Oh my God.
And they literally only wanted to talk to him. And after that, we started submitting with my name first and his name second. And we stopped getting into film festivals.
Wow.
So, it's not that I want to say, well, they're not accepting because it's a woman that's getting the #1 billing. But at the end of the day, it gets to the point where it's like we were getting into film festivals, we were winning awards, and all of a sudden we switched the order of the directors' names, and it just stopped.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I've had similar, not so much as a director. I think a lot of people might think I'm a Hindu male or something. Or I might get off easy there. But running as an effects supervisor, I usually run a team. And Ducky's on my team. He does a lot of my stunt work and whatnot. I have another male makeup artist that I use occasionally, but it's kind of weird. I've got 50-50 male-female ratio on mine because I go for the best people. I don't necessarily pick them by gender. But we'll be on a set, and if it's somebody who's never worked with us before and we just got on there, 9 times out of 10, they will go up to Ducky or they'll go up to Brad or somebody and talk to them. When are we going to do this? And they will just take great pleasure to smile and point at my direction and go, you need to talk to her. And the looks on the faces
We go
are
through the same
amazing.
thing. It's
Speaking
literally,
of which, the part that I came in on,
Yeah.
we were talking about adding more of the nurturing and the emotional moment.
Yeah.
That's me, thank you.
Definitely. When we write
She's
together.
the one who writes the... I'm the one...
Yeah, he's the sensitive side of our writing team.
it works. But yeah, no, me and him, we've had, we've been on set, and I'm literally a producer. I'm literally the one who's writing checks at the end of the day. So all these actors, and I'm like, here's your paycheck for the day. Oh, you need, travel reimbursement. Here you go. I'm literally in charge of all of this. But still, if they have a question, they're going to come to him, and they're going to ask him first. And I'm literally sitting there. I have a clipboard and I have a production Bible that has all of the answers to all of anything you could possibly ask about this film is in my hands. And they'll be like,
secretary.
and they'll go to him and they'll be like, are you sure that this is the tie? Because I asked Lindsay and he's like, well, what did Lindsay say? And Lindsay said that this is the tie. He's like, well, then Lindsay and I went through this. That's the tie. She has the production Bible. Let her pull it up and prove it to you. But and it does. They have a problem sometimes taking answers from me and not him.
There is a tendency on sets that people will gravitate to the nearest available male figure in a supervisory role before they'll come to a woman.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what position that woman is in, be it the director, be it the producer, or be it the effects supervisor, they go to the nearest man and re-ask the question.
I've never had that problem.
They ask us. I say, well, she signs your check, ask her. I'm the director, she's the producer. Her name is on that check at the end of the day, listen to her.
I've never had that problem as a director, but it might be because of the machete.
No.
The machete.
I actually carry a machete with me on set most of the time, not to look mean, but because we shoot in the woods in Florida. Anybody familiar with Florida knows it's Australia light. Everything can kill you, so I carry a machete with me whenever we shoot in the woods.
I say I've been lucky and I haven't really dealt with people walking up to somebody else, as a cinematographer, I'm a department head. I've never had a PA walk over to somebody else and be like, so what am I supposed to do? They get sent to me and I pick that up, put that down.
Heather?
What I was going to say, it kind of reiterated what you said, but I've been on sets where the female will say something and they'll go check with someone else to make sure, to verify that was what's happening.
Okay.
And I've been in pre-production meetings where someone will say something, associate producer or whatever, and literally no one will listen in a way until a guy repeats it right after, and then they're engaged.
Yeah.
And it's literally you kind of look, the girls will just kind of do that eye contact, did that just happen? like they don't really listen until someone repeats it. That's not a female.
I've heard.
I used to a Colombian necktie once.
I was on a recent shoot. I was doing the effects on the shoot, and the first AD was also a woman. We had an actor who had to come over to me to get his makeup done, and I went to the trailer, said, "Can you come on over to makeup so I can get you ready to go on set?" 15 minutes later, he hasn't appeared. First AD, she says, "Well, let me go. I'll go get him. I'll get him over here." She goes over to get him. He still doesn't come. Had to get one of the male, not even the director, it was a male crew member, to go over and tell him to come to makeup.
It's almost like you want to give some
Then
homeless
he
guy
finally-
$5
then
to
he
go
finally-
over there and see if they'll listen to him instead. You know?
And it was ridiculous.
We give the homeless man the job and say, "Shut your listen to this guy."
Like I've heard it.
Give John Link on every set, here's $5, tell everyone. See if they listen to you.
I've heard it in writing rooms that's called that like female writers where they have male writers who are like trying to be supportive and allies, that they'll repeat like the concept or idea that they have for like the episode, and they call it a dick phone, where it translates.
It translates.
Yeah.
It's like it's just reiterating the fact that, oh, hey, you're only gonna listen to me.
Yeah.
You only wanna listen to me, so.
But it also says
Don't
something
listen.
in a very grand scheme. If we're still, it's 2018 and we're still at a time where a woman said something, so now somebody has to go check with another dude to find
To
out
make
if
sure
the
if
woman
it's-
has any IQ to speak. Like, that's unacceptable behavior.
Do we have your permission to speak?
And I think that's also part of the major issue. We're stuck in a society where, women can't do horror, they don't understand the gruesomeness, whatever the BS they want to give us. Because maybe, in a way, they're almost afraid, oh God, what if they do it better and they show us up? It's almost like an undercurrent of some weird egocentric self-esteem weakness. It's like, oh my God, I can't have a woman deal with this. I need another man to say it's okay. And I don't understand that, especially at this point in our society.
But it is okay.
No. They just all have to lose their jaw for like 6 months. They'll learn.
No, let them bleed. Let them bleed once a month.
Right?
That's why we don't trust you.
Well,
They're like it must be that time of the month. Let me go check and make sure she knows what she's talking
Oh.
about.
Right? I had that once. I told the guy, you know what? You got your karma and you're about to lose everything if you keep the attitude. It stopped pretty quick.
I feel like that's one of the reasons, though, that we want to make our own films.
Yes.
Is because we get to choose who's around us.
Yeah.
And who we respect and who is the best at what they do, for whether male or female. And I mean, as a director, I don't have those issues because I pick people that are awesome to be on my team. And actors, if they're not pulling their weight or they suck, they're out. There's a million actors, that's not an issue, like we want to make movies where we're supported and loved and we have an awesome product, so
And I
don't
think
know.
that's why being on a set with a strong female presence, you mentioned not having trouble on your sets because you carry the machete. I'm going to actually disagree with you a little bit there because the first film I worked on with you was when you were directing, and it was not just the machete, it was the group of people that you pulled together. And every film we've worked on together has not had any issues when it's been a group that we have pulled together and hand chosen.
Yeah.
It's the issues happen when we go out to work on other
Other stuff,
projects
uh-huh.
where we've been hired on. That's when you start seeing the attitudes and the issues and the personalities.
I think
That's
your
not
screen husband's
100%
about
true,
to
though.
disagree with you.
Oh, my screen husband. Yes, husband. Hi, screen husband.
Hi, screen wife. That's not 100% true, though, because you do know that she lost a significant portion of her crew before shooting that film.
Yeah, that was before you came on.
Because she is silly woman child who not know how to make film.
Yeah, this
She's lost.
But you got rid of them.
Yeah,
They were
no,
gone.
no, this is actually a true story. Actually a true story. It was my first time directing ever. And of course I had to tackle a werewolf movie because I'm insane. I'm not saying it's the greatest film in the world, but it was my first time directing and I'd written it, and at the time Ducky, who is my partner, wasn't involved with it at the time, so I didn't have a strong male figure behind me. It was just little old me, and I was pulling a crew together before and it was, I guess, about 3 days before we're supposed to start auditioning for cast, and the goddamn UPM comes up to me, and he's like, you need a director more than you need a UPM.
What?
Wow.
Yeah.
The guy wanted my job.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's like, okay, you didn't raise the money to do this. And he was trying to tell me that I didn't know what I was doing. The whole time I'd been doing his job. He'd been sitting around, twiddling around here. So I had everything he was supposed to do, I'd already had in a book. I ended up turning to the guy who was just a PA who had a lot of experience, and I just turned to him. I was like, dude, do you want to be at UPM? Here, I've done all the work for you because Dickhead there hasn't. You know, the guy who just left with half the crew. So we ended up pulling a new crew in, and it went out great. And the last day of the shoot, my new and improved UPM was driving me back from the set, and he just turned to me. He was like, I got to tell you, I was a little bit worried at first because of the way everybody was talking, the first crew. But you're awesome. And I'm like, thank you. Yeah. So he went on to work with me some more. Awesome. And I haven't heard anything from the other guy, ever. He disappeared off the face of the earth. It's really weird.
I wonder what happened.
We wonder what happened to him.
Well, I did clean him.
So we have more male killers that, think about it, women don't kill as many.
That's not true.
as
We just
men.
get away with it.
We get away with it.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say,
There's fewer female killers
Because we
locked
try to
up
clean
in
up after
prison.
ourselves.
Well, it's interesting. I was actually listening to a podcast, and what they're finding now is that men get caught a lot more often because they tell people.
yeah.
They can't keep it to
That ego.
themselves, and women are just like,
They're bragging.
no, we're just going to get this.
The only time we talk about it is in a very small circle when we
Yeah.
know there's no microphones and nothing. We checked already.
Or when you go to the bathroom.
No. Nobody can hear anything. You gotta be careful.
No, there's that one lady in history that everybody would go to when they needed a husband taken care of, and you just go to that one little hut,
Yeah.
you get what you
Yeah.
need, and then you just go. But we don't talk about it, it's just slide your card underneath my hand, go here.
That was
It's
me in a
like,
past
here,
life.
hon,
That's
it's
why we all
a
know
beauty
each other.
remedy.
Beauty remedy.
Powder
You
your
have
nose with
cramps,
this.
go here. That's hide it underneath that.
Somebody has a comma going on, bring it to that hut.
That's right.
So we talked about behind the camera. Let's get into in front of the camera. Those of you who are actresses and have acted before. Taking all this into account, what do you look for when you get a script? What is it that you look for in it that will say, I want to do this, or no fucking way am I doing this? And I don't even mean surface level, no, there's too much nudity or there's too much this, just in general, what is it that you look for in a script?
I look for something that either makes me want to cry or makes me want to vomit. Because that's my main criteria. A combination of the both is great, where you don't know whether you want to cry or vomit. Seriously though.
At the same time?
Yeah,
Do it.
yeah. And then, or something that really gives me chills. That's what I look for. Or especially with a killer type of film, if the female antagonist is ripping out hearts and slitting throats and there's a lot of special effects involved, then that always gets me too. And it can be a little bit lighter where I'm okay, this didn't make me feel as much, but this character is awesome.
I have to agree. I look for characters that have some kind of a depth, something that makes them interesting to me. But to go also to the surface level, because I can be surface level, I really like to know if I'm going to die, am I going to die gruesomely?
Yeah.
Can I get slaughtered gruesomely, or can I slaughter someone gruesomely? That's my surface level, because that's just okay, this is too much fun.
Yeah.
Does the length of your survival have any impact on it?
Not
if you're killed off in the first 5 minutes.
I don't want to be killed off in the first 5 minutes.
Okay.
What if it's a glorious death?
If it's a glorious
Oh,
death.
it's a glorious death.
If it's a glorious death.
The only death they remember in the whole movie.
If it's a glorious death, I don't
Yeah.
mind being killed off in the first
So-
5 minutes.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at the script, taking that into account as well, when it goes to something, you're looking at those scripts where you're I don't know about this. But then you find out something we experienced. We did a scene. We had the typical babysitter scene. and it was the babysitter, boyfriend comes over, and they had an intimate scene together. She was a little apprehensive until, because it's me and my other friend, we are the two cameramen, and then she realized my producer's a woman. The makeup artist for the day is my cameraman's girlfriend. Now she's more comfortable. It's not two guys, camera.
It also helped that
filming
the other
this.
actor was
So,
gay. So
and then that was the next guest. The other actor in the scene is gay. So basically, she's sitting in a room with a gay actor and two couples. Now she's comfortable. Is that the sort of thing you take into account as well? Does the crew, the director, how many men versus women in those more uncomfortable type scenes matter?
Yes, and I guess yes and no. I mean, one scene in particular, and it was the only scene I'm in the film, I am essentially naked, I am tied up, and I am, Ducky's laughing over here because he remembers this, I am being pretty much filleted, absolutely filleted. And I didn't mind because Ducky was there as stunt coordinator. Shiva was there and covered me in massive quantities of blood. Although I will admit, Ducky walked away, and after the actor basically was complete. The script went running down the highway somewhere about 2 minutes into the scene. He was just screaming and making crazy animal noises, and just flailing at me, and at some point he finished the screaming and the flailing. The sound guy and the camera guy walked out of the room, and I'm holding myself up. I can get myself down at any point in time.
Sweetie,
I'm like,
I can tell you why everybody left, because I did too. It's because we couldn't stop laughing.
And I finally stepped down off the box and stuck my head out around because it was in a stall in a barn, around the door, and I'm like, Am I caught?
That's probably the best outtake moment ever.
That's hilarious.
Like at the very end of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Horrible.
They're having people that you know and trust on the set does make you feel a lot more comfortable when you're doing a scene that is usually a nude scene or a rape scene or any kind of a scene like that. There has to be a comfort level that you know that there's people there that you trust. But
I'm laughing so hard because the one and only time I've acted, well, I mean, I guess one of the very few times I've acted, was for our very first film ever, and it's literally like us at, I think you were 22, I was 19, and our friend was 16. It was
Four of us and her, 4 guys and her.
and me, and we decided we're going to go shoot something in the basement, and they're going to torture me, essentially, so I'm tied to a chair, and of course, this is our first film ever, so we don't understand how anything works, so we get actual duct tape, put that over my mouth. We get actual handcuffs from our friend who is an auxiliary police officer, and they literally put my arms between the chair and use the actual handcuffs, and then they get the duct tape, and they wrap my legs around. So I'm now stuck to this chair, and I'm literally real duct tape. So there's no give to this at all. And so they torture me. They do the whole scene. They dump freezing cold water over me.
Oh, no.
And the ending is that they're gonna eviscerate me. So I have a Ziploc bag because, again, we have no idea what we're doing, first one, and we think, here's a retractable knife, let's tape a razor blade to the back of this thing, and I'll cut the bag perfectly, and then I'm going to pull all of these chicken gizzards and raw meat out of this bag. What could go wrong with this?
But wait, there's more.
Kimasabi over here, as I like to call him, puts his hand like this on the bag to hold it in place, gets the razor blade, runs it down the length of his hand, slicing his hand open. Reaches, like a trooper, reaches into the bag of raw meat, pulls it out, finishes the scene, calls cut. Fuck, I'm going upstairs. He runs for his life upstairs to now wash the salmonella out of his gigantic wound.
God.
And our 3 friends who were in the scene with me go, let's go have a smoke. Off they go. They literally leave me in the basement, tied to this chair, covered in water, covered in fake blood, for 20 minutes with my boyfriend upstairs, bleeding to death from a razor wound. So,
this is already a horror movie.
I have learned from that
Should have
experience.
kept the camera rolling.
Yeah.
Seriously, that was the real waste that the camera was cut, because literally I was still like, you know, there was nothing. There was nothing.
And
I
on
wanna
top
see
of
this
that,
one.
this was the
December.
week after Christmas.
Yeah.
So it's about 20 degrees in the basement.
Oh, man.
So I learned set safety and respect very quickly. And when my actors get on my set and they are going through anything at all like that, I am very clear that they will be safe, that we will be with them the
And you
entire
won't use real
time.
duct tape.
We will not use real duct tape. Do not use real
Who pulled it off,
handcuffs.
by the way? Who pulled the duct tape off?
When I came back down,
He did. When he came back down.
Was it a fast pull?
after
like a Band-Aid?
after washing my hand and bandaging it up, I came down and she's still in the chair.
And nobody was murdered afterwards?
She's still
I'm
outside.
very impressed.
I have stopped bleeding and she's still in the chair. So yeah, it was
Just a
wild.
flesh wound.
And I still work with one of them sometimes.
Aw, see, that's a trooper.
But he was
and you still have your lips still on
still
your
have my
face.
lips, everything. I don't think I'll ever need to wax in my lifetime.
Never again. That duct tape finished everything.
Can't grow hair anymore.
Okay, so moving forward, unless you have anything else to add.
I mean, I could add, but I've got stories, but you know.
I'm sorry, war stories?
Yeah.
Sound like
Angie's like, hold my beer.
Women in Horror 2 coming later tonight.
After beverages.
Buy us drinks, it only gets
That's when
better
the
from
fun
here.
comes.
So this festival's been going on for a while. Last year, though, was the first Women in Horror panel. And it was the most attended panel of the weekend, which is amazing, you know, and this is pretty damn close, too.
There's 4,000 people in this room.
Pretty loud, yeah.
Did you hear that? 4,000 people.
But there was one moment during the panel where they asked, seven women on the panel last year, they asked, who is your favorite female director? And there was a moment of silence. And sitting in the audience, this exemplified the problem to me. There are 7 female filmmakers sitting on stage, and not one of them could think of a female director who inspired them.
We did,
Eventually.
eventually. It took us a very awkward
But
couple of minutes or
Anybody
so.
in this room, who's your favorite director? All men. All men. You all immediately had a man pop up in your head. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with the fact that you like male directors. That's fine. The problem is that there's just not enough women.
That's what's shown.
Okay? So, who are your favorite females?
I always fuck up her first name, but she's normally a cinematographer, but she's moving to directing, which is I think it's Morna Reed. She did. Her first name's wrong. I know it. She just was cinematographer on Mudbound, but she was showrunner and director on Handmaid's Tale, which I haven't seen yet, but I need to see it. But the fact that she's making that leap, that change, is actually really cool because that's what I'm trying to do. Yeah.
More silence?
I messed up last year. I was going to sit here and
find
change.
it to be a big problem.
I was going to say Jodie Foster, but I don't know if that counts as horror.
It doesn't, no,
yeah,
I
I
think
It doesn't be a horror.
That's directing.
Female
Just as a
Yeah,
director.
directors.
Favorite
Because
director.
female horror directors are even fewer and far between.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about this on the car on
I
the
was just
way
gonna
in,
say
that
that.
most women direct 1 or 2 horror films, and then they do other things.
No.
It's very rare to find I don't think there's a
I can't
single
think of
woman
one
who's done nothing but
master of horror, female master of horror.
Yeah, I
Like to the
can't
point of
either.
like when you have a show called Masters of Horror, what female would you call?
True.
Who would you call?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's,
Soca
normally she
Sisters?
just does Broadway shows, but she's done a couple films. She did Titus Andronicus,
Oh,
White,
oh
I
God.
think.
Trying to think
I
what her
can't
last name
remember her
is.
first name.
Julie Taymor.
Julie Taymor.
Julie
Yeah.
Taymor.
Thank you.
Julie Taymor. Yeah.
Yes!
I was gonna say it's really only been the past like 3 years that I've even seen prominent women like going to the conventions like this is wonderful, but having like the Saska sisters, I think that's the first group of girls that were like, oh, they do just horror?
Yep.
Like, what is that?
Yeah.
Like,
That's it.
it's just starting to come to the forefront. Like, no, there are people that just do this and love this, and it's really just the past few years that I'm starting to see. names come out.
It's
Before
interesting.
that, it's like,
Cause getting ready for Women in Horror Month, so I was trying to challenge myself on Instagram, because I usually do a Women in Horror Month Instagram challenge where I post another women in horror every day of the month. So to get ready for it, I started looking for female directors that I could just do, on Women Crush Wednesday. And I had to go back to the 1920s to find like real women who had like 30 films under their belt.
Wow.
And you get black and white photos of them, and there's literally one that was credited with over 300 screenplays. I can't even think of a woman now who has written 300 screenplays. I mean,
Do you think it's actually partially because, like right now, that we don't have a lot of those names popping in our head? Is it possibly because of how hard it is to be a woman in horror, to deal with all those, like, every one of you has said you had some kind of problem trying to get your films made, all the problems trying to go through with it. It's like ripping your teeth out, ripping your hair out, just dealing with the constant abuse almost of, the non-equality and all that. Do you think it's possibly part of that whole issue why we don't have enough names, almost that it's kind of getting stomped down in a way, where you have so many problems hitting your head in the horror field? Instead of, like, you might think of women who have done romance movies, and there might be a better name, but because it's horror, is it possibly because it's such a male-centric, dominated, almost egotistical in a way, possibly? Could that partially be part of the issue why you don't have a woman director who's done 30 horror films or whatever? Because by the time you all finish one, like you said, you had after your production team walked out, like, when you have those moments, that kills some part of inside of you that, at least in my opinion, it would have to, versus men who don't have that issue. I mean, you don't hear a guy going, oh, and the woman said, hold on, I gotta go ask another woman. I mean, you don't hear that stuff. That has to kill your soul purpose and passion in a way.
I
to have
feel
all
like
that kind of hit you in the head versus...
I feel like we multitask. So, like, I don't know, that we get bored and we just directed one film and then we want to act in another film, or we want to produce, or we want to do a play, or I feel like that's one of the factors.
We want to do a lot of different things.
And we're
Don't trap
good
me in a
at
box
them
kind of
all.
thing.
Yeah,
Don't give me a
exactly.
label, don't trap me in a box.
I
But
won't
the thing
agree
is,
there.
the part where you're hitting your heads on the ceiling there is like, I mean, I think we're all aware of the fact that the entertainment industry is not a monolithic, literal kind of thing. I think we're all aware of that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What?
But but the thing is, like when you talk entertainment, most people are just immediately going to identify as liberal and start going, okay, so respect for women, doing stuff, but
Couldn't be farther from
hey,
the truth.
what does
Couldn't
this
be
belt
farther
go
from
with
the
this?
truth.
It's instead go to the guy. But why is it that that's so predominant though? Because you keep hearing these stories again and again and again, all through the levels.
I think it's sort of like, to answer one question than the other, I think it's, I think a woman can get a horror movie. We've seen Mary Hare and Mary Lambert, best known ones, who got, a horror movie and in pretty classic ones too. But I think then when it comes to, most directors are like, fine, I'm going to make one or two films that are going to get my name made, that are going to be more, commercial. And I think that when you get to your third film, you want to make something that's of your voice. And I think maybe that's where behind the scenes, women are losing out because they want to finally make a film that's in their voice and they just can't find the investors. Or they just can't find somebody to back it to the same level that they've been at.
And I think that is part of the problem, because if you want to make a name for yourself, it almost seems like you have to do the traditional popular, this is what people want to watch, do what people want to watch, which again, like I'd said earlier, as soon as they say, oh, you're a filmmaker, what do you do? What kind of films do you produce? And I say horror films, and then the wall goes up. The wall goes up immediately. And I think for many of us working in the horror industry, we don't particularly want to go do a romance or do a documentary or go do something that isn't a passion project. And I think that goes back to the being passionate. We're passionate about this industry, so we're staying in this industry, but it makes it a slower, longer, harder road to get anywhere because we're not following this is the step that you follow, you do this first, then you do this, then you do this to get there.
I mean, I think my other thing, and I've thought about this a bit, and we've talked about this a lot. My curiosity would also be if it's a financial, because women do not get paid the same amount that men do.
No, not at all.
Not even close. Like who was it? Got paid 300 times more or whatever.
Yeah,
than
Mark
Nicole?
Wahlberg got
Yeah.
paid $1.5 million for his reshoots and all the money, and Michelle Williams got paid $1,000.
Yeah, $1,000.
Now I don't know how many days, like a disparity of days, but even if she had 1 day of filming and he had 8 of the 10 days filming, she should get paid more than $1,000 and him get paid, like he would only do it for $1.5 million. It's like, screw you, buddy. Like, you're not, like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to go see that movie from Mark Wahlberg. Actually, every single time I see the poster and he has glasses on, I laugh. I do think it's a money thing because statistically, anybody who makes a feature, only about 10% make a second feature. So you think about the fact that, like, I'm struggling with that. I'm trying to get, like, I shot a really bad feature that was shown once, like, really long time ago, and I'm trying to get another one done, and it's very difficult. So you think about the fact that it's already hard for anybody to get money, to get all the logistics in place to do something, and then you add that, well, you're a woman, and then you have the aspect of not everybody's gonna take you seriously. I think that's one of the things that is not even genre dependent, that, like, women are just not gonna see that second movie, even if they have the skill and the passion and the drive, because
it's even worse if they make a bad movie. I think women.
You're screwed.
You get one. Yeah, okay, yeah, it happens.
I think men get
Let's
10.
give you another one. I think they get 10. Women, it's like if you mess up once, you are done. Like that's it.
See, you've proven yourself to be a hitter.
Yeah, exactly. We already knew it.
Yeah.
That one was a fluke, and
we're never doing this again.
Yeah.
I think that's the scary, and I think that's a lot of the fear. Where it's like when you are a woman in horror, like I don't see myself anytime. I mean, I say that last year. I said I don't see myself making a feature film anytime soon. But I feel like the more I kind of sit with a short film, and the more I kind of sit in this industry, and the more like now it's just like, no, I want to make a feature. But I feel like it is some partial because a lot of times when you watch the trajectory of a female director, they'll get, one movie, maybe 2, and then all of a sudden they go off to TV.
Yeah.
And women do very well in TV. They really do. They do better in TV than, much better than film. But I wonder if it's partially that, like, because they didn't get paid what a male would have been paid on those first 2 features, they don't have the finances to sit and really work on that passion project. And so then they take the steady work of television, and then by that point, it's just like you're in that steady... It's your work. And then you're still trying to make those connections, still trying to, raise it, but then now all of a sudden you're a television director. Why do you want to leave television? I'm curious. I think the more I kind of sit and watch the industry and kind of stick my toe in, I'm beginning to think that that's my new working theory. I don't know.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense.
Cool. Sorry, that just
Anybody anything to add?
that was death. Death to dreams.
Okay, so starting to running out of time soon. Skipped a couple questions. Considering the past of women in horror, things, what you want to do, what would you like to see more of in the future? Those tropes that we talked about, the different roles that women play in movies. What do you want to see more of?
Well, I definitely want to see, like you said, more female killers.
Yeah.
I think that's just so much more interesting because there's a lot you can do that with that. You can twist that on the audience, which has been done, but not enough. It's just kind of cool to see because it is an empowering thing. Even if it's a vicious, awful thing, it's still like, oh, look at that woman kill a bunch of people. That's all that aggression he can't take out in reality. She gets to on the film.
Why do you think that there's so little female killers?
I think because, one, a lot of male directors, a lot of male writers, they're going to write what they know. They're going to write a dude.
Okay.
I think that's a huge part of it. And
don't you just want to have babies? What's wrong with you?
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Think about some of the controversy with Wonder Woman, where guys were flipping out that, like, you know, oh, this movie's doing well, or even like Star Wars, where they're like, oh, what the hell, now everything's getting passed to a woman.
Yeah.
How dare
Yeah,
they?
how
dare they? Yeah.
People said that in the theater. I
had a good screening. I was so, when I got out of that screening, I was so surprised to see
Really?
and hear the insanity. Like, there was clapping and cheering. I got lucky and did not get into one of those very visceral, hate-filled things. But yeah, like, there is definitely, obviously, there's a culture right now where all those little, like, hidden thoughts of really awful things, including misogyny, is just like, hey, let's have it out in the
Let's
open.
just have it out in the open.
And be
Let's
total
just say it.
dickheads.
Yeah.
Which I guess is kind of good because we can identify. But I think that's just kind of the big issue is that right now there's not enough women or trans people or just any kind of diversity in Hollywood, and obviously a lot more in independent, but and so because those voices aren't there, you know, there's not going to be as many like female antagonists because they're going to write a guy because that's what they're a guy.
I would like to see more female killers, but I'd like to see one who's just a pure sociopath, not
not a crazy.
Yeah, not an issue.
Not
Yeah,
being,
No daddy
my
issues.
son died,
Yeah.
so I have to kill people.
Yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah.
I got picked on in school, so I have to kill somebody. I'd like to see a very strong killer that it is just simply psychological meltdown, no rhyme or reason behind it, because those are the scariest people to me. You can't, assign them a reason to, and I would just love to see a really strong female pulling that off.
We've
Yeah.
had male ones in movies where it's just pure batshit. And we haven't had really a woman without, like you said, the wah-wahs of a reasoning, which maybe is just my throwing out there, but it could be partially why we don't have enough women killers in movie, is because the same thing going back to how many women get caught versus how many men killers there are in the general scheme. So we don't even really, as a society, maybe think about wanting to. That pretty face could kill you while you're standing there. They don't really
It just
like that
kind of, it always kind of gets me, because whenever I do see females in the horror movies as the, antagonists or whatnot, there's always got to be a reason for it, and I almost feel like is that the only reason why you put a woman in there? Is the only way you could accept it is if she had a reason that everybody could identify with?
I think that's
it couldn't
partially
be
it.
like the Joker and Batman where he's just batshit and
Just
that's
batshit.
it.
I think that we just don't have any reference for it, because I've been working on that script since I was, I don't even know, 16, 17 years old. Killer woman, but I think it's like, because we have no point of reference, it's almost like I don't even know how to write that, because I haven't seen like that many women killers to make it like the opposite of, if that makes any sense.
Excuse
Yeah.
where we don't have that in, a male killer. We don't really have this awful backstory of, oh, poor him. It's very much often just.
And yet, women have been diagnosed as sociopaths.
Oh, absolutely.
Women, there's not a rule that says only men can be sociopaths.
No, but you're just going through that time with mom.
Well, also, like, there's no, like,
Abused as a child, and you became sociopaths are born, and they are born female. They are born male. I think
whatever they want.
whatever the hell they want. That and the other, not just the sociopath character, but what about the profiteer, the woman who is killing and doing evil things because of personal gain, because she wants it and she wants to take it, which is what you often see a male killer who is either the hitman or the killer who is killing for some sort of personal gain, and it's always a man. I would like to see a woman who is killing for personal gain, and there have been in history. Lady Bathory, for example, is the perfect example. So I would like to see more of that kind of killer.
Well, it's interesting. I'm sure everybody's seen Mindhunter, and if you haven't, please go see Mindhunter, because it's awesome. But what they're finding now is the FBI profiling behavioral science. That's what I was looking for, the behavioral science team. What they're finding now, and what they're starting to be concerned about, is that this profile that they have for each different kind of serial killer is only based on men. So they're beginning to now wonder to themselves whether they fucked up. And if these same things apply to a woman serial killer, and how many serial killers that are women that they may have missed because they just don't have that science broken
And
down.
how many unsolved serial killings there have been in our history. We go back to the unsolved thing. There are a number of unsolved serial killers in history. How many of them could have possibly been women and never would have been solved because nobody was thinking to look for a woman?
Like the Zodiac Killer, who knows? That
Yeah.
could have been a woman. That would have been great. Oh, let's make that movie. I want to watch that one.
Well,
Okay.
I want to make that.
Can I just watch it happen? Because female Zodiac Killer would be epic.
And every writer in the room right now.
No, but
Now going,
Writing down notes.
Even Zodiac Killer was a woman.
Oh yeah, fine. Female Zodiac Killer 2.
True. We actually did shoot that. That's right.
For a music video, First Possibles, we had a TDX actually comes.
He played the Zodiac Killer in the video, and through the course of the video, at the end you realize it was her the whole time.
That's awesome.
And he's just her alter ego in her head.
She's a little 4'11" girl, too. She's teeny. It's awesome.
what if Jack the Ripper were actually a woman?
That would be
Yeah,
awesome. I love that.
that's been talked about too.
Yeah.
Well, that would be
Read
interesting
stuff on
because
that.
because they actually took the womb and the
Yeah.
ovaries
Yeah.
and everything.
Yes.
That's
And
almost
that-
like
that
what
would
is that
be-
in
I
like
read a whole article about
That
that
could be
recently.
postpartum depression, by the way, if you
yeah,
think about it.
that could be
Was a woman.
menopause right there.
Yeah, but I mean, in that whole type mindset, they would technically, if it got to such a breaking psychosis point, you could see somebody who lost a child, who gave birth to a dead baby during those time periods, cutting that whole thing out because theirs didn't work, and that whole, so it would make sense, and no wonder you didn't
And
get caught.
no one would have looked for a woman.
I mean, Jack the
No one
Ripper.
would have noticed
Could
a
have been
woman.
Jacqueline.
Jackie.
well, even beyond that, like,
By the
think
way,
of-
one of the films that you're going to be seeing today,
Oh, good, see, I am a psychic, all
you'll be
right.
catching this weekend.
I can't give you lottery
So-
numbers, they swift.
It's
Oh wait,
a great film, though.
is that Creatures of White Castle?
Yes.
Yeah.
Whitechapel.
Fantastic.
Sorry, Whitechapel. Which one?
White
I was like Whitechapel. I am so
You'll see the White Castle on TV.
Seriously, the woman in the lead for that, she is so fantastic.
awesome.
Yeah.
It's on my list
Okay,
for sure.
yeah. So we got to wrap this up.
Wait, I have a quick 2-word answer. More women creatures. That's it.
well, also,
Female creatures.
where is like a female Jason or Mike Myers? Just the straight up,
Yeah.
like,
Yes.
Butcher.
yeah, just unstoppable murder machine. Where's that?
Coming 2019,
Yeah.
women in horror now.
So, ladies, go down the line. Tell us, you all have films this weekend. What films are they? What did you do in it? And when can we see it?
I have a film showing tonight at 10 o'clock, Devil's Cut. Phil Kral is the director, writer, cinematographer of that. I acted in that. I had a film show earlier, The Sin Reapers, which is also going to be showing at Sunday, and I don't have my schedule on me, so I don't know. But, yeah.
Sunday.
So those are the 2 films I have here in the festival. Oh, and someone's going to be roasting me tonight at midnight, so you guys can experience that as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
if it's a horror
It's gonna
thing,
be
is it
delicious.
literal or is it?
I don't know.
Oh,
Listen,
I have yet to find out.
I'm just gonna bring a stick and a marshmallow. Either way.
Lindsay's hungry though, and so am I, honestly. So,
I have a short film, Beneath, that I wrote and directed. It is playing tomorrow at 1:25, and again Sunday at 2 p.m.
I have a room in Cairo, which screened earlier today. It'll screen again on Sunday at 3:45.
we have The Family Way Coming Home. It's just listed as Coming Home. I was a producer and an actor in that. And it is screening Saturday and Sunday, Ducky, do you
Like
know?
3:45 on Saturday and on Sunday,
Like, after,
Shortly after lunch.
Did you schedule, circle the names, everybody?
yeah.
Shiva was the-
I was the director and Ducky and I co-wrote it, so it's.
12:15 on Sunday.
That's what I said.
3:45 and 12:15.
Yeah, and just quick little side
the only
note
one that was
about Coming
prepared.
Home is that it is actually a prequel to, or not a prequel, but a
Prologue.
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 It's a prologue to a feature that we're trying very desperately to raise
get
money
investors
for. So
for,
you guys
so-
are gonna
Please
love
come
that,
see it.
right?
okay.
Come see it, love it.
Whoa! Thank you all for coming to the Women in Horror Panel. Give them a round of applause.
In closing, you only need to take a look at the current headlines to figure out that there are problems in Hollywood and the film and television industry. From unfair pay, unequal opportunities, and even sexual harassment and assault. Neither I nor any of these women are asking for special treatment. We are only asking to be treated fairly and respectfully. We want a safe environment to create our art just like everybody else. For too long, women have been patient, convincing ourselves that we are paying our dues while we are actually being ignored or silenced. It is time for us to step into the light and be seen, whether it's with the hashtag #MeToo movement, Female Filmmaker Friday, or Women in Horror Month. Women in the industry need to be seen to inspire the next generation and to silence the gatekeepers when they claim that women don't want to direct or that women don't want to make horror. For the fans who are tired of this remake train, who are sick of seeing the same movies again and again, if you want different stories, you need different filmmakers. So what can you do to help this Women in Horror Month? No donation needed. Just share your favorite woman in horror. Doesn't have to be indie or even a filmmaker. Talk about your favorite actress, author, or artist. Use the hashtag WIHM9 or WIHM and be part of the conversation. Thank you and happy Women in Horror Month.